You want me to tell you who I am?
Yeah, I'm recording, so yeah.
Okay, I'm Barney Smith. I'm here in Alamo Heights, and I'm the curator of a toilet seat art museum. So I want you to tell your friends about me and let them know that I'm still kicking, but I'm not kicking very high at the age of 94.
Back in the spring of 2016, I interviewed Barney Smith at his Toilet Seat Art Museum in Alamo Heights. I was producing a different podcast back then. It was called The Works. The episode about Barney was a little rough around the edges, but I thought it gave a pretty good sense of what it was like to be around this one-of-a-kind man and his one-of-a-kind collection of art. As you probably heard, Barney passed away last week at the age of 98. As a tribute to Barney, we wanted to replay that episode as a special bonus chapter of the San Antonio Storybook, a podcast about the people and the places of the Alamo City. I'm Brantley Hightower. With over 1,600 employees worldwide, Bemis Manufacturing serves consumer, commercial, and industrial markets. They make the bright red plastic shopping carts you see at Target. But that's not what Bemis is known for.
As the shadow of the Great Depression fell over the country, businesses faced a difficult choice: adapt to evolving consumer needs or fail. Albert Bemis chose to adapt. In 1932, he took a chance on a new product line: toilet seats. When a local seat manufacturing company filed for bankruptcy, Albert saw an opportunity to diversify the Bemis product line.
Bemis is the world's largest maker of toilet seats. If you happen to be listening to this podcast while seated on a toilet, chances are its seat was made by Bemis. Headquartered in Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin, Bemis was established by two brothers and has been in business for over 100 years. During the Second World War, when rationing made the use of brass hinges prohibitively expensive, Bemis developed an innovative plastic hinge that allowed the company to become a leader in the industry. Granted, that industry was toilet seat manufacturing, but someone has to be the leader, and Bemis is proud to have that distinction. A legacy is defined not by what you do first or last, but what you do with the opportunities that present themselves along the way. For example, over the course of his long life, Barney Smith has been a preacher and a plumber, a husband and a father, but what he's best known for is creating a museum of toilet seat art. That's what we're going to talk about on this, the 14th episode of The Works, a podcast about architecture, those who create it, and those who inhabit it. I'm Brantley Hightower. Ever since I moved to San Antonio, I had heard rumors of a toilet seat museum tucked away on some residential street in Alamo Heights. Alamo Heights is its own little town and is completely surrounded by the much larger city of San Antonio. I drive through it every time I take my kids to school. As it turns out, I drive right by the Toilet Seat Art Museum. The museum itself is pretty easy to miss. The collection sits in an unassuming metal building. It was originally built as a detached garage and only later came to be used as a museum. There is nothing to identify the unusual collection inside except for a small yard sign that says Free Museum with a phone number written underneath. The phone number belongs to Barney Smith, the curator of the museum and the artist responsible for most of its collection. If you dial the number on the sign, he'll call you right back.
If you're not going to answer, I'll hang up. Hello?
There is no one available to take your call at the moment, so please leave a message after the tone.
This is Barney Smith down at the Toilet Seat Art Museum in Alamo Heights. Someone rang my number, but they didn't stay on the line long enough for me to know where they're from or what they were up to. So if they want to see the Toilet Seat Museum, give me a ring back at 824-7791. Give me a ring and let's set up a date, and I'll open up the doors and let them see my museum. Bye now.
When I met Barney Smith, he was wearing a light blue Guayabera that matched the light blue of his eyes. His white hair was neatly pulled back. Barney is 94 years old and walks with a bamboo cane. The cane doubles as a pointer to help identify various toilet seats as he shares the story behind their creation. Barney told me about growing up in Texas and Tennessee and about working as a plumber. Once he had moved back to Texas, he would spend his free time painting in his garage. It was mostly a hobby back then, but he would sell a painting from time to time.
I belonged to some of the art guilds, and I even took my artwork, my oil paintings, down to the Riverwalk at the Starving Artist Show that we have here in San Antonio, and I have sold a few.
His work back then was oil on canvas, but an artist like Barney is not limited to only one means of expression.
I even went to a plumbing supply house, and they had about 50 toilet seats laying out on the dock. They were going to put them in the dumpster and take them to city dump and destroy them. And I asked him what he was going to do with those toilet seats out there on the dock. He said, we're going to get rid of those, we're destroying them. And I said, well, I'd like to take some of them home to do some artwork on.
And just like that, Barney found a completely new canvas for his art. Although this turn of events represented a significant shift in the direction of Barney's work, no one knew about it. No one would know about it for years. He continued painting in his garage as he had done before, only now he was painting on and creating collages with toilet seats. It was only by chance that the world found out about this toilet seat art at all. Barney was showing his more traditional oil on canvas paintings to a patron who was interested in buying some of his work. The visitor was intrigued when he caught sight of Barney's growing body of toilet seat art in his garage. He said Barney should share it with the world. Barney disagreed.
I said, that's my hobby.
A few days later, a camera crew from WOAI News 4 San Antonio showed up at his door.
And I said, well, you can't come and film. He said, well, somebody was in there and said that you had something that we needed to show the world. So they twisted my arm so bad until I came out of there with it all twisted, but I told them to come in and film.
And just like that, Barney's hobby became something more.
The next couple of days, the other two TV shows contacted me, and I said that it's already been filmed, already been aired, and they said, well, you know that we've got a different viewing audience than Channel 4, and that was 12 and Channel 5, and so I said, well, come on.
In the 1989 film Field of Dreams, a mysterious voice tells Kevin Costner, if you build it, he will come. Barney didn't hear a voice. He didn't set out to build a museum in his backyard. He was just doing something he enjoyed. That hobby got a little bit of attention, and then people started showing up to see for themselves.
So after they filmed it and put it on the show and showed it all nationwide, well, then I said, well, I'll just open up my doors. My telephone rang off the wall. I said, well, they said, well, we saw your toilet seat museum. It wasn't a museum then, it was just a hobby. We saw your toilet seat hobby on the TV the other night, and we want to come and see it. I said, come on.
Barney's Toilet Seat Art Museum averages about 1,000 visitors a year. I'm not going to try and describe all the toilet seats to you. You should see it for yourself. But when you do, you'll quickly realize that a visit to the museum isn't about seeing the collection itself. It's about experiencing the toilet seats with their creator. As Barney walks you through the museum, you're learning about his art, yes, and the things that inspire him, but you're also learning about a man, about his life, and about yours. With any work of art, there is the object itself, but there's also the story behind the art. That story can be universal or personal, big or small. The story that Barney's art tells is the story of his life, and it's been a good one. He shared most of it with his wife of 74 years. He would celebrate their anniversary with, you guessed it, a commemorative toilet seat.
Got a 57 years here, 62, 59, 60, 61 in Bingen, Switzerland, 63 up in Rio Dosa, New Mexico. This down here is my down to the last anniversary that I got to hang up is right there. There's my, you'll run across my 74 years right there on the bottom.
One of his toilet seats contains a piece of the Berlin Wall. Another contains a piece of a toilet from one of Saddam Hussein's palaces in Baghdad. Barney didn't collect these artifacts himself. Instead, other people brought them to him. They wanted to share a part of their stories with Barney, just as Barney wanted to share his story with them. What's most remarkable about the art displayed at the Toilet Seat Art Museum isn't that it's art created from toilet parts. Well, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's what gets you in the door. But what makes it meaningful is that every one of the 1,227 seats in the collection tells a part of Barney's story, or the story of someone who crossed his path. They all add up to a life well lived, a life that's still being lived.
I'm working on the 1,228 that's in the house. I'm still working on them.
We don't get to write our own legacy. Others write it for us. When Barney saved those 50 toilet seats from going to the dump, he had no way of knowing that they would become intertwined with his legacy. Just like Francis and Herbert Bemis had no way of knowing that their name, like Barney's, would forever be associated with toilet seats.
And here a lady contacted me from Bemis Toilet Seat Manufacturing Company up in Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin. She said that what's going to happen to these whenever you're gone? She said, I'd like to have them up in our little museum up in Sheboygan Falls. I said, you can't have them as long as I'm alive because I'm having too much fun of showing off my art.
Before I left, Barney wanted to show me his favorite work in his collection. Like every other toilet seat he described, it started with a story.
I want to tell you about a little story of a 12-year-old boy that was in the same grade with me in Eastland, Texas, and his teacher gave him this poem to say in the 5th grade, and it was written by Rudyard Kipling.
The toilet seat Barney was standing in front of was crafted to look like a painter's palette. In the middle, an area had been cut out to act as a frame for a sheet of paper. I assume the paper once contained the carefully handwritten text of the Kipling poem, but 8 decades had faded the ink so that the paper was almost blank. It didn't matter, though. Barney wasn't looking at it as he recited the poem, When Earth's Last Picture is Painted.
When Earth's last picture is painted, and the tubes are twisted and dried, the oldest colors have faded and the youngest creek have died, we shall rest. Faith, we shall need it. Lie down for an eon or two until the master of all good workmen shall put us to work anew. Those that were good shall be happy. They shall sit in a golden chair and splash at a 10-league canvas with brushes of comet's hair. They shall have real saints to draw from, Magdalene, Peter, and Paul. They shall work for an age at a sitting, never grow tired at all. Only the Master shall praise them, only the Master shall blame. No one shall work for money, no one shall work for fame, but each for the joy of the working, each in his separate star, shall draw the things as he sees it, for the God of things as they are. I knew that little 12-year-old boy personally because it was me. She gave it to me to say in a declamation piece when I was 12 years old.
The world was a better place with Barney in it, and he will be missed. In the end, Barney's collection of toilet seat art found a home at the Truck Yard, a beer garden located north of Dallas. If you happen to make it up there, raise a glass in honor of Barney. The music for this episode was by Chris Zabriskie. San Antonio Storybook is a production of The Rivard Report. You can find more information about this podcast and enjoy all the nonprofit journalism the Report has to offer at therivardreport.com. Until next time, I'm Brantley Hightower.